Good evening, and as always, it is my absolute honor and my privilege to be here with you guys. And today we are joined by our old friend, marketing guru, home care flyers phenomenon, Adam Corcoran. Before we get Adam onto the stage here, I just want to just give a little bit of an announcement. Jeff Rosskopf, who was going to be the second part of our dynamic duo, unfortunately couldn't be with us today. So, Adam, the spotlight is on you, my love. Are you ready for this?
Let's do it. Let's do it. I'm excited to
Let's
be
do
here. Thank you for part two. Let's go.
part two. So we have got a list of things that we're going to be shooting at you. This is that rapid fire. Bring all of that honesty, that authenticity. Bring all of that transparency that our viewers here today can get some insight into how they lead their marketing campaign and their marketing efforts. So again, we're here with Adam Corcoran, and a lot of you guys know Adam from Home Care Flyers. If you don't, here he is. Please, please, please reach out to him for all of your marketing and your flyer needs and your promotional products. He is right there for you. So let's get into it. You ready?
I am, Yvette. Thank you.
Okay. So outreach strategies. Adam, outreach strategies. What outreach strategy should our homeowners apply when they're starting out into their marketing efforts as a new home care agency?
I think there's so many different angles when we're talking about doing outreach. I mean, there's so many different approaches that people can dive into. One thing that I like to talk to about is finding a good niche. Really diving
Yes.
into really understanding what you're gonna do well. I see so many times home care owners really dive into doing a lot of everything at
And
once.
not 100%
And
of
I'm
one thing.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. And like for me, for instance, I'll give you for example. About 2.5 years ago, we really dove deep into the long-term care insurance world. Okay, so we are like, when it comes down to it, Southwest Florida, we are like the provider of choice in long-term care insurance, and we've worked really hard at that reputation. And over time, it's been a very fruitful, I mean, when it comes to monetary business growth and reputation, we are known as the long-term care insurance provider when you think of home care. Um, so when I look at companies and they're doing transitional care, hospice level care, or doing a whole bunch of events in assisted livings, it's good to have a variety, but really being super focused and intentional when we're talking
Right.
about finding a good niche. It's good
Right.
to dive into everything, but you want to find your key differentiator. I don't think enough home care owners really have a good differentiator to be able to stand out in the market.
Absolutely.
So
And
when we talk
and
about
that's one of
outreach,
the I'm sorry, it's one of the things that I drill into our owners. What is your niche? When we start writing that business plan, what is your niche? What's going to stand you out from everybody else? Because guess what? Everyone is following the same regulations, right? So what is going to make you different? It doesn't have to be anything, extraordinary, but it just has to be something. And the other thing that I want to add on to that, Adam, is, the consistency of it. Don't do it for 2 weeks and expect, it to blow up, right? You have to stay with that momentum. You've got to stay with that, continuation to see the fruits of
no.
your labor, right?
Well, and so many people think it should happen right away, right? You make your 2 visits, you're not really good and get a feel. You have to go in a different angle. I think last time we talked a little bit about like kind of approaching an assisted living community, right? And my biggest word of advice is where's your starting point? A lot of people go right for the director of nursing and say, I'm going to pound the pavement, knock on that door, and ask for that business. And I applaud people that have that confidence. However, sometimes you're not going to get, you might not get a good reception from the director of nursing or the
Absolutely.
executive director. And sometimes you have to, it might be a longer sales process. Maybe you have to really connect well with the activities director or the sales director or the move-in coordinator, and then take baby steps in developing those relationships, becoming relevant within that community, and then really asking for the business. So
Absolutely.
the one thing I ask marketers and I've been telling marketers for years, or owners, is we have to be good listeners and being able to understand situations that you're faced to and adapt when it's appropriate.
Absolutely. Again, totally agree with that. And it's going to take the time, but you've got to try it. You're not going to know unless you try it. Minimize your risk, but you're going to have to take that risk, right? Or it's not even being business at all.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the next question.
Right.
I don't have a great financial budget. So, everyone's got all of these great, home care flyers stuff and, all these materials and pens and shirts and hats. And I've got all of this and they're going out with these gifts with the bows on it and I don't have a great budget. So how do I actually make that impression? And what alternatives would you suggest in going out there and making that first introduction to a potential referral source?
A lot of people think it costs a lot of money to make that initial impact, when I think a lot of people are lost in the process, because truly what people are looking for is authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. Now, don't get me wrong. The nice pens and the tote bag and, the coffee mug that you might be able to afford down the road is a nice gesture. But I think if we really zone in at understanding our referral partners, it's really looking for genuine people who are going to provide good care.
Right.
So I don't want people to get lost in the mix of understanding and getting miseducated about that they have to have a huge budget to really impact or start getting referrals. I'll be honest with you. I look at some of my clients from home care flyers, and I tell them, you're really not in the space to invest a lot of money today.
All that money.
And I actually tell them, let's pump the brakes, develop those relationships, and then you might be able to come in. But the truth is, and I've done 1,000 things wrong before I started doing things right? So I've done this before. And I used to be the person who would go consistently and drop off the pens and the pads and don't add actual value. You really need to reverse engineer that referral source, whether it's a physician, assisted living, care manager, concierge physician, whatever it is, skilled nursing facility. You have to reverse engineer, understand where their pain points are, and then really explain how you're going to add value. The tchotchkes and the pads and the pens and all that stuff, that comes later in the game. You really, to develop, your top 10 referral sources, is being genuine, intentional, and providing value and a solution to make their job easier.
So you've just answered my next question, Adam. So I don't know if you've been looking at my notes or the staff shared my notes with you, but the next question actually was, so how many referrals at any one given time? And again, I'm here to ask you to co-sign some of the directives that I've given over the course of these months. How many should I have in my pocket, if you will, in terms of referral sources that I should be working on at any one given time?
Well, I think it changes, right? I think you go through different phases of where you're at within your business. Generally, I've worked for different. I've only worked with 2 different companies before, but the reality is, and I used to have this mentality of having 80 to 100 different referral sources that you're going to see on a weekly basis. Now, I also want to be very specific in saying, if you're stopping in to get FaceTime for 2 minutes just so you can document into your CRM that you stopped by to show your boss or
it's not going to work.
Powers to be, whatever, it's not going to work, right?
It's not going to work.
And I have sales reps myself that I said, I'd rather you have 20 to 40 quality visits per week rather than 80 visits 100, that you're just doing to check a box.
Right. And to
checking
please
a
you.
box is just a thing. Right. My thing is, you're going to find out real quickly, if you're just doing things without intention, it's not going to result in anything.
Sure.
So when I talk about phases, you really have to zone in at your referral sources and identify and grade them. So when I look at my top 40 accounts, I have my A accounts that I'm going to see more frequently. I have my B accounts that I'll see a little bit less frequently. And then my C accounts that I'll probably see, maybe once a month.
Right.
You
But
want
those
to
you can
have,
filter
those
in,
C,
right?
yeah,
Those you
and
can
don't get
filter into your
confused. Those
B.
C, yep, yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Those C accounts, don't discount them. Those can quickly become your B or A accounts because don't
In
forget,
time.
one miss on their preferred provider with another home care agency, one miss opportunity that they're, maybe one screw up or what have you, or especially that we're going through crazy staffing, crisis right now. That C account can quickly move to a B or A account very quickly. So you don't want to lose sight on it, but you have to continue to reassess those accounts and see where they're at. And being consistent is key. 1000%. Don't forget it. I mean, you
Absolutely.
can't go in with a mindset of saying, I'm gonna see this person once a quarter, or I'm gonna drop off my business card at the front desk and expect referrals just to pile in. And people's needs change over time. I can tell you that I've seen more staffing requests from assisted living and skilled nursing facilities in the past 6 months than I've ever seen before. So
Right.
the real people who are winning right now are the people who are able to adapt to the demand. When we recognized that the staffing crisis was occurring, and all of a sudden we trickled in and seeing that some skilled nursing facilities and assisted living are having staffing issues. We were able to adapt really quickly and say, okay, now we understand their need. Let's pivot our business model to be able to fill that void.
Yes, you most definitely got to, change that pace. You've got to shift gears, if you will, in getting into those
Mm-hmm.
pockets of time, because we are going to evolve all the time. And again, it just goes on to what you had just said, Adam, in terms of, listening. Listen to their pain points, right? As soon as you sound private duty home care, everybody knows what you do, right? So this has got to be that segment where you listen to them, because you don't know about them, they know about you. So take that time to understand what they're doing, identify where those pain points are, then go away and start looking at how can I fill that void. Now, if you can think quick on your feet, guys, go ahead and make that offer, that suggestion right there and then, right? But if you're new to it and you're
Mm-hmm.
still trying to get your rhythm, most definitely, take the time to listen, step away for a moment, recalibrate, and then set yourself up to come back again, but come back with something good, right?
Right.
My next question. We talk about budgets and how much it costs an agency to onboard a client, right? How much is it going to cost to onboard a employee? What is our budget that we should be looking at, Adam, when it comes to actually collaborating or gaining that interest of that referral source? Where should our budget really be?
In regards to being able to budget, like how much you're going to invest into that account, is that what you're
Correct.
asking me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. I think every home care owner or even marketing director should really do a deep analysis. I'm big on data, right? So every quarter, our company, we pull reports on a quarterly basis to understand the return on investment (ROI) that our referral sources are providing for us. We don't do a lot of advertising, to be quite honest with you. So we only actually advertise in one publication actually at all. Majority of our referrals are coming from referral sources, hospice agencies, skilled nursing facilities, home health. But we run those reports with intention because we want to understand where the business is coming from and not just the number of clients. I think a
Right.
lot of people get excited by hearing, well, I got, 15 referrals this quarter from XYZ home health agency. That might be great,
But what did
but
you convert?
I'm much rather, right, and not even just convert, but you could have converted all 15 of them, but what was their length of service, right? What was their revenue? So, being specific on those metrics as well, because at the end of the day, I mean, trust me, I've had assisted living communities in the past use us exclusively, but they're for doctor appointment escorts, and they're like one time only, and we could get 15 referrals a month from that place, but it didn't generate revenue, right? So I think
Absolutely.
it really boils down to is identifying who you want your client to be and adapt your marketing strategies and budget accordingly. So you might invest a little bit more into, a CCRC, continuum care retirement community, or a memory care community, that's going to generate clients that are going to last longer, and also generate more revenue overall.
Right, as opposed to a podiatrist office.
Exactly.
Right. So let's break it down a little bit. And I think we did mention this in our last segment. What is the role of our marketing liaison or our liaison? What would you consider? And I know for you, Adam, that you're a little bit of everything, right? You're the go-to. But we have our owners who are here who are new, right? What is that role? What's that role of the marketing liaison or the liaison look like?
I think the primary focus, if you're not a designated marketing personnel, is to strongly identify relationships. And there's several ways that you can go about doing that. But I think it's important to be focused, because there's too many people who don't have they don't have confidence in that they're a marketing person. And that's okay, but marketing is just a thing. I mean, marketing is a fancy term for relationship building. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not a good marketer. I'm not good at sales. Well, when you start to unpeel that person and you're like, well, no, you're really a good people person. Is it identifying those relationships? So the word of advice that I can give to people who are, I'm very blessed that I have the ability to primarily focus on business development, marketing, and sales opportunities.
Right.
Where I know there's a lot of people who are juggling many things, right? They're scheduling one day, trying to hire the next, and then want to be, get out there and pound the pavement and grow business. It goes back to being intentional and consistent. So if I was that person, I would be very specific on designating times. I actually just met with a good friend of mine who just started a geriatric, fitness organization, and he's now hired some staff, and he's being able to take off some things off of his plate. But he's so diligent in being able to go out Tuesdays and Thursdays and designate that time for marketing.
It has to be structured.
Make it a priority, right? It has to be structured. Yes. It has to, and make time for it,
Right.
And because if you don't, let's be honest, home care is a forever changing. Every day is a different thing. But I think as you identify those opportunities to bring on staff and take some of the stuff off of your plate, your priorities are going to shift. So you have to shift your priorities with the support that you have internally.
Right. I totally agree. I'm gonna pump these brakes for a moment. We're gonna go to a quick break. We're gonna come right back, and we have got another list of questions here. You're doing great, Adam. You've been prepared.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's take that break for a moment, and we're gonna be right back.
Excellent.
We're back. It was a short break, but it gave Adam just a quick time just to wet those tonsils and be ready for this last part of our segment here. Still firing some questions at him. Some of those questions, guys, are going to be relative to what we had, talked about in our first segment. But all of these questions are topics that are going to be so relative to you as you're starting out into your own business ownership. We touched on it before we ended. With regards to juggling so many different tasks, right? The owners, they're scheduling, they're having to recruiting. They're still having to work on policies and procedures. They're still having to think about, where am I going? How am I going? So how do I manage? What is your advice, and how does one of our owners manage all of these tasks, as well as being consistent with all of those marketing efforts that we're talking about today, Adam? What is your advice on that?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I'm one person who tries to do it all, and I've learned very quickly over time that you can't, right? And actually, a good friend, Nick, he works in the home care industry as well, and he taught me over a year ago. I was telling him, I can manage my own social media, I could do my own video editing, I can do my own graphic design, and he's like, "But is that what you love? Because is that generating revenue for you?" So I think when you look at your plate, right? Okay. And if there's things that you can take off that are not generating revenue, right? That you can delegate or outsource completely, do it. It has to make sense, right? It has to work within your budget. But if you have staff that you can trust to take on some of those things, at the end of the day, you have to look at your week to week activities and make sure that they're aligned with revenue growth. If they're not, then you have to adapt and change. Right. I could tell you there's been so many times that I would help out with activities in like a memory care community, right? And that's nice. And sometimes you have to do that to build that relationship. But over a certain period of time, if you identify that community isn't really looking at you as
you have to move.
A preferred provider, you have to move on. And that's okay.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. You have to be very truthful with yourself about, is this a revenue generating task within my schedule? Because let's be very honest, our time is the most valuable asset that we have when we're looking at our schedule.
Absolutely.
Time is money.
And if you're new to the game of business overall, forget about it being home care, because again, home care is just so volatile, right? There are so many moving parts. But if this is something that is new to you guys, you have to take your time, because if you're riding that bike and you're going downhill and the legs are still going, before you know it, it's going to overtake that your ability to maintain the speed. And that's going to be exactly the same thing that's going to happen in what we have to do in handling, staffing, billing, speaking to your accountant, recruiting. It's going to take over. So just take your time, but also be very, very cognizant. And obviously, as Adam has said, if your finances are allowing you to be able to say, okay, then what areas of my current day-to-days can I then now delegate to somebody else? Right, Adam?
And also, I think the future is automation, right?
Yes.
I think the future is automation. I'll say it again, because you have to look at your processes. And again, I'm very blessed that I'm in this marketing world within our organization, but there's a lot of people who are juggling multiple things, right? So if you can look at your hiring process and your onboarding process, and you can invest in a software that's going to automate a lot of that onboarding with being able to upload documents, background check, whatever it is.
Compliance.
You have compliance.
Yep.
All right. So if you can automate that process by investing, and like, scheduling software is expensive. Well, is it really expensive if you're spending 20 of your 40, 50 hours a week on manual work? So people have to be really understand investing in automation and tools that are going to make their job more efficient. I think efficiency is key. I mean, that was my term for this year is becoming more efficient, ultimately with everything that we do.
Right.
So it's looking at resources and tools to help our day-to-day operations so we can focusing on that business growth.
Right. And again, just to piggyback on that, again, I'm very, very diligent in speaking with our new owners in terms of, write down what your steps are, right? You've got policies and procedures, but you've also got to have protocols, right? What are those days? Let's see where we can skin the fat, cut the fat. and make it such an automated process that you are not wasting time, right? You have to see it, because if you don't see it and you're just going in the dark, you're going to be all over the place, and it's going to take a lot longer than if you have it written down or identified on your steps to cut out some of that, those loose ends.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Yep.
So business plans, we all have to have them, right? Sometimes you don't look at them after you've created one, but we also need to be looking at a marketing plan. So do I actually need a marketing plan, Adam?
Action without a plan is chaos, right? Now wait. A plan without action is nothing.
Is nothing.
So I'm going to say that again. Action without a plan is chaos and unorganized, but a plan without action is going to result in nothing.
Right.
So absolutely, 1000%. Now, the frequency on how often you make your marketing plan, that really can be up to you on how you feel will fit in within your structure and your organization. But I say this all the time. I mean, I used to work for corporate, insurance world, and we would sit around the table, for hours at a time, week after week, and about planning, and then we didn't have enough time to put that plan to action. So it's like we spent more time reporting and planning, and we didn't actually do anything with it. So I think people have to be realistic. I mean, I think KPIs are important. I think they have to be measurable. I think they have to be realistic. I mean, anyone can say they want to be a $5 million company this year, but let's be honest with ourselves. How are you going to get there, right? And you need that roadmap, that marketing plan to really be able to put execution things and then reflect on that plan. That's why I think KPIs and metrics are so important. As I said, I'm a big data person. We could put a plan together and put action, but if we're not really looking at the outcomes, we're not going to know how to move forward to the next plan. Because these plans, and in my honest opinion, these plans should be looked at on a quarterly basis. And actually, in more recent times, if you're not looking at your marketing plan and adapting probably every month or every other month, then you're going to get left behind. Because I'm telling you right now, with all the changes that we've seen in the past 18 months, you have to be able to adapt. And I think that's what I really focused in on last time we talked is, the people who are winning right now are the people who are able to adapt to the demand of what the current needs are.
Right, totally agree. I had a conversation with somebody who'd inquired about, coaching and so forth. And I'd asked her about, how far along in the process are you? Do you have a business plan? She said, yes, she has a business plan. Okay, then, well, great. So in answer to the other question is that what do I do next? What's in your business plan? And, she was actually okay in saying to me that she didn't know what was next because she wasn't the one who wrote it.
Yes.
You feel my pain, right, Adam? So anyway, with that being said, of course, had to redirect her. Listen, you have to be the soul of that business plan. You have to be the heartbeat of that business plan. And like you say, the repetition of it in going back, whether it be every quarter, every month, especially in the beginning stages, maintain fluency in looking at it, reviewing it. Is it speaking to what's actually going on right now?
Right. And I think you nailed it right on the head. I know so many people who are like, oh, well, can I purchase policies and procedures?
Yeah.
And that's fine. And can I purchase a business plan? Like, well, you can outsource so many things, but a marketing plan and business plan, really, you need to have ownership of. Because if you don't, you're not following what your passion is. And if you're not following your passion, you're not going to be excited about getting up every morning. You have to be excited about getting up every morning.
So name some of those things that we want to see, or you and I, that we're saying, what do we want to see in that marketing plan?
Well, I think it really boils down to those key accounts, knowing who the key stakeholders are going to be, and documenting. In that marketing plan, you want to talk about the frequency that you're going to visit those key accounts, And as I said, adapt. You're going to talk about the variety of marketing mix that you're going to do. Maybe you're going to allocate some time and effort and budget to networking or co-marketing. I think so many people miss the opportunity of collaborative marketing. And if you don't know what that is, I'm going to lean in on this a little bit if you don't mind. Collaborative marketing has really taken our business to the next level. So we take the opportunity to find other, power partners like a home health agency or a hospice agency, and partner with that other partner, and then to go in and do sales visits or events or co-marketing activities. And we do that because it serves two purposes. One, my honest opinion is it's kind of always easier doing cold calling with someone else to bounce stuff off of.
Absolutely.
And two, you're taking the opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. So let's say, for instance, you're going to go into a CCRC, but maybe you don't know anybody there, right? And you might have a power partner like a home health agency that might have contacts in there. So if you were to look at your top 20 accounts and then partner with someone who has another top 20 accounts, you basically just doubled your sales calls just by partnering with someone.
With one person.
With one person, right? And it gives you opportunity to strengthen that relationship. So if you can bring in that power partner into an account that you have a strong relationship with, you're going to strengthen that relationship with that home health agency or hospice agency, really to benefit both sides of it. So I would put that into my marketing plan. When we talked about frequency, we talked about our networking opportunities. You might even put in like your social media strategy or what you're doing online. I know some companies that invest a lot of money into online marketing, and that's good too. But again, when we're talking about budgeting and being strategic on the front end, a lot of newer businesses don't have a lot of money to spend, but it doesn't take a lot of money to develop those relationships. If you're new on, I would focus on those top 10 to 15 referral sources, allocate, some of them into your A accounts that you're going to visit frequently, and then identify the other ones, and then shift, keep on shifting. And it doesn't take a lot of money, but be consistent. And I think that's the key metric.
Mm-hmm. Right. And one of the things I'd also like to add on that is, put in there your matrix. What are the numbers that you're wanting to see? You may not hit it, but at least have something, right? You may exceed it, which is great, but you have to have data. One thing that I learned in, starting a home care and then selling a home care is that all of your data from day one is relevant. Because you're going to see your peaks and your valleys. You're going to see where the trends are, and it could be seasonal, right? It could be things such as, COVID-19 or, environmental and economic challenges. But you have to have that, because if you get to that point of an acquisition, all of that data is relevant, and it's relevant for you. It should be relevant for you on a quarterly basis with your team of your committee members and seeing how are you performing. So take down your matrix. Make sure that you're monitoring and you're looking at your numbers. I have a question here from Stan. He says, is it possible to overmarket yourself, especially in the early days of the business?
Yeah, and I love that question, actually. And in speaking with a colleague of mine last week, because he kind of asked the same thing. He's like, I feel bad going into accounts too much. One thing I've learned very quickly through my trainings is I am super intentional of asking that question. What is the frequency that's appropriate for me to visit? Because right there and then you're setting the expectation, right? So if you go in and see social worker Susie and you learn a little bit about her pain points, right, on that first visit, you come back with some of the solutions, how your company can be a resource for her. On that visit, I ask her, hey, Susie, is it okay if I stop by periodically? Oh, I mean, most likely she's not going to say no, right? But then you ask, would it be appropriate if I stop by every 2 weeks? By setting that expectation, she's going to expect you to be there every 2 weeks, but you have to follow through on your commitment. You can't say, I'm going to stop by every 2 weeks and then not stop by every 2 weeks. On the contrary of it, you also say, you allowed me, you said, yes, you're okay with me stopping by every 2 weeks, and then you go twice a week. You're going to be going back on what your word was and kind of disrespecting what she was allowing. So I always like to ask I don't think it's a bad thing to ask. I think early on in my career, I was a person who was there every single week because I want to be consistent, but people weren't really, some referral sources weren't open to that. So then I had to kind of stop, reassess, see what was appropriate, and then build a better plan. But and the reality is I hear what you're saying, Stan. You don't want to be too aggressive, but when those referrals start coming in, your frequency is going to increase because you have opportunity to go back to Susie and say, hey, just want to let you know, Mr. Smith discharged from your skilled nursing facility last week. I just want to give you a brief update on how things are going. They're going to appreciate that communication. And I'm telling you, the frequency, they're going to be less bothered by you popping in because you're providing communication and value to what they do in their job.
Absolutely. And again, piggybacking on what you've just said, Adam, that's always just the icing on the cake. If you have a referral from whether it be a GCM or from a social worker, anybody, always do that follow-up. Always do that follow-up and just say, hey, this is what happened. This is how the transition occurred, but everything is going great. So-and-so is comfortable. They are going to appreciate that, to say, you know what, I did remember that this came from you. Mm-hmm. Right. I have Alicia. Go ahead.
Let me stay there right there real quick.
Go ahead.
And that's the perfect opportunity to ask for the next referral. So I'll give you, for instance, that social worker, Susie, referred Mr. Smith because he was a fall risk, right? You follow up the next week and say, Mr. Smith is doing much better. He has physical therapy coming in. We're providing safety assurance. And then before you leave that conversation, you say, is there anyone like Mr. Smith that you can think of that's discharging this week? That's your opportunity to ask for the business without being too aggressive.
Right. Absolutely. I have Alicia, who's also out there in Florida. And Alicia, I think, just came in, but I do want to make sure that I bring her to the table. She's my sweetheart. Alicia is saying, should you set aside a certain amount of funding for marketing per month? And I know we touched on it, but just for Alicia's purpose here, Adam, please go ahead and answer that question for her.
The answer is it depends, right? And I know that's a hard answer, but it depends on where you're at within your business. So you can't be early on and invest too much money on sales and marketing if you're not seeing a return. Right. So it's kind of like a stepping stone, right? It's that ladder of investing and putting money aside and then getting to a next level of where you're comfortable with. So like a company who's only doing, maybe 100 hours, 200 hours a week is not going to be able to allocate a big budget to sales and marketing. Whereas a company who's doing, 1,500 hours a week will have a much larger budget. As you scale and grow your business, you're going to have different opportunities. But now on the other side of that is when you are new, you might have to invest in collateral like brochures and business cards and stuff like that. But that should all be built into your startup cost. That shouldn't be into your early process of your day-to-day business expenses. You should have that already planned out. And then as you scale and you grow, you'll have more opportunity. Is there a magic number, a percent? I'm sure there's studies from Home Care Pulse or other organizations that have a certain average of how much money you should be putting aside towards sales and marketing. But at the end of the day, it really does depend on the structure of your business and where you're at in this journey.
Right. And again, just always encouraging that while you're going through your startup, you're not even operating at this point. Doors are not even open, and a $50 here and $100 there into your business checking account is going to help you that when you are ready to call Adam at Home Care Flies and say, I need some pens and I need some promotional items, that, that you can do that and do it comfortably without it being so much of a stress to you. right? So again, plan ahead. That's why we have budgets. That's why we have business plans, because you are planning ahead. So use that as a foundation, guys, in terms of preparing yourself for what's going to happen and what needs to happen in terms of, marketing and putting your brand out there on the market. Which takes me to my next question. Is there a fine line with representing your service versus selling a product? Aha.
I think I love that question. I love that
You're
question.
welcome.
It's all on the value add. It really is. People are confused in the process. And because truly selling a product, selling a service, I don't even like calling myself a salesperson.
Right.
I don't even like using the word sales. Let's be very honest. I used to be a school teacher. I don't know if you even knew that about me. But
I did.
I take the same principles. I take the same principles of what I did in the classroom to get 140 eighth grade kids to learn algebra in my sales and marketing approach, right? And it's really about educating and value proposition. I'll give you a for instance. Here in Florida, we recently, in my area, we've identified a huge opportunity just in the past 2 weeks because all of the elected surgeries went to outpatient only. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what that means that anyone who's going in for these major orthopedic surgeries that were elected are only going to be on an outpatient basis, which means that they're not going to skilled nursing facilities.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They're going in the hospital, out same day. Sometimes we're talking about full knees, full, shoulders, hip surgeries. If these people are going that are more appropriate to go to skilled nursing facilities in or rehab, now they're going directly home because they don't want to postpone their surgery. Mm-hmm. Now they're going right home with home health, which is, intermittent therapy services and maybe limited home health aides and nursing visits. Home care is so relevant right now for that situation. So we've had to really adapt very quickly. I put together a flyer within a day. I was in the hospitals and we got in front of, like 4 or 5 of the biggest orthos in town to be able to be a resource for that. But that boils down to that value proposition.
Absolutely. And be able to judge the changes. I'm sorry.
Right. No, that's it. And it goes back to adapting, but not getting confused about selling a service that people probably already know about, right? I pivoted in this direction because I know there was a value proposition to this specific situation that we're occurring in our area. So people do have to be on their toes when it comes to certain situations, and be able to adapt very quickly.
So guys, Adam has just given you right here on the platter a value proposition that potentially you guys can be looking at and seeing in your current market. Is this something that is a pain point that you can now actually go out and present? So if everybody was listening, they would have seen that just came from Adam. Thank you, Adam. As a potential avenue, a potential niche based on, what's going on right now in our current market, for you guys to look at. Find out what those pain points are. So I'm not confident in marketing and I cannot afford to pay someone to do it for me. What should I do, Adam?
And that's tough because a lot of newer home care owners don't have a budget to hire a marketing representative. And I've seen so many posts within the groups about, getting an intern or getting someone, someone from college and paying them commission only. And I don't knock that idea. Okay. However, you want someone who's going to be really invested. And, I saw someone post this the other day, the person who starts that company, and I think Jeff mentioned this last time we were talking, like he's very heavily involved in the marketing aspect because he has so much of that ownership. That ownership is so important. And that's why it goes back to being intentional. If you have the amount of hours that you have in a week that you physically could put towards your business, being intentional of carving out the time and being diligent to prioritize to put the effort into that marketing efforts. And it doesn't have to, and that's why I go back to that word efficiency. If it's not, people get all caught up about, I work 18 hours a day, I work 16 hours a day. I don't care how many hours a day you work. It's what you do in that time that you work that's really going to drive results. People are confused in the process. They think, people who work long hours have good work ethic, and that may or may not be true.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you're doing in that time that's going to drive results. It's really going to set you apart from the rest.
Right.
And that goes back to
right.
being efficient, intentional, and putting the effort in. Stop talking
Right.
the talk, do it, put action to your words, and find out what's working and double down on those efforts.
Right.
And the stuff that you're not, the stuff that is not resulting, over time, you'll identify really quickly, move on. You know how much business is out there? People don't understand. There's so many different avenues. We could talk for a whole other avenue on part 3 about every single referral source. I'm telling
Part 3 coming, but before we get into part 3, my last question. Who should we be marketing to? So this is going to segue us into part 3. See what you've just gone and done?
Yep. I must have copies of your notes somewhere. So many people, when I look at my referral sources, as I said, I pull quarterly reports and see where my referrals are coming into, and then I realign my referral sources and my accounts based on that, that kind of momentum. I'll start at the most common for us, and it's probably true for most organizations, and they might be just missing the mark. Home health agencies are our number 1 referral source. Okay, and I'll tell you why. And I'm telling you, it's going to get more and more opportunities. Home health is going in, and the people who you really have to connect with in home health organizations are going to be your clinical supervisors, your admission nurses, all right, and physical therapists. Sometimes they have social workers as well. Those are the people who are going to go in for those 45-minute, hour visits tops, and they're going to identify those high-risk patients. Now, things have changed in the Medicare world not too long ago where, that person who is discharged from the hospital now on home health services, if they get readmitted to the hospital, that makes that home health organization look poorly because they're not managing that level of care out of the hospital. So they need partners like private duty home care to really be the eyes and ears. So home health, skilled nursing facilities for transitional care. A lot of people will say, I'm not going to bother with assisted living care. They already have help there. Don't get it confused. And we can lean in on that at a later time. But assisted living communities are a huge opportunity. I would say about 40% of my clientele is in memory care or assisted living right now. Guardians, case managers, financial planners, we could talk all day long about long-term care.
We can. That's part 3. That's part 3. And part 4. Oh my God. Right? But like you said, Adam, with all jokes set aside, I mean, it goes on and on and on. And, who do I market to is most definitely a part 3 series to our Marketing Madness series, in terms of really honing in on what is my opportunity if I went to a GCM? What is my opportunity if I did go to an assisted living? For our members, we go through, they pull out for me 10 of their referral sources, and I talk through them. What is your approach? This is how I would go at it. This is why, so they can actually get an idea before they even head in terms of, what may be there underneath the surface. So that is most definitely going to be a part 3. I have somebody who just posted, and they said, my clients with the most hours are in ALF and in memory care. So again, just acknowledging and agreeing with what you're saying is that ALF and memory care, we know that dementia is just going through the roof right now. So anywhere where we're in that area of specialty is most definitely where we need to be. Go ahead, Adam.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget a little fun fact. And if you didn't know this, tomorrow is the day you need to get out there. Next week is Assisted Living Week. Okay. So you need to go and again, knock on those doors and show appreciation to your assisted living, because it's a national, recognized week of all our friends in the assisted living communities. So we have a full week plan of visiting all of our key partners in assisted living and memory care to show our appreciation. And again, another opportunity to get in there, show your face, and provide value.
Absolutely. Adam, in closing out, please close out and just let us know again your last final words in wrapping up this segment about our marketing. What again, in closing out, would you say to our viewers and our business owners who are here listening or was going to listen to this at a later date? Let's wrap it up in just, a short, sweet sentence.
I think so many people get intimidated by marketing. It doesn't have to be difficult. We are in a people service industry. We're naturally we're doing this because we want to help, right? We need to show that genuine, authentic, personal touch. And I'm telling you, the results will come. Finding little opportunities to connect with 10 people will drive your business ultimately. Don't try to do too much. Be laser focused, be intentional, and follow through on all of your commitments. Because the first time that you don't,
they'll remember that.
You only have so many opportunities. They'll remember that. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Adam, as always, my love, but we are going to make sure we get a part 3 going here before I close out. Guys, please take a few moments, head over to our website at www.homecarebusinessadvisors.com. Please look out for our new brand that is coming out, which is our Home Care Business Advisors exclusive. Please head over to our YouTube channel and click on the subscribe channel. Stay connected. We are still here. We're working on your behalf. We're doing some great things behind the scenes, as I've said to you in the past. And we have a 2022 convention coming up, which I am so excited about. So looking forward to that, that we're putting together for everybody. Adam, thank you so much. Stay in the studio. Do not leave us. But for now, we're going to say goodbye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Adam.